So everybody's always waiting for the right time, right?
Yeah.
There's no right time. There's a million right ways to do something, and there's only one wrong way to do it, and it's to do nothing. I have friends and people that always talk about, like, you're so lucky you started your own business. I wish I could start. I'm like, well, you can. You just, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to start from scratch. Like, oh, you had an idea. I don't have an idea. I'm like, you don't need an idea. You can get a franchise, right? Like, if you really want to start your own business and you're itching for it, like I was when I was young, I got a franchise. That's how I started. I didn't start from scratch. I started in a franchise, right? So like a franchise is a great stepping stone to either A, become your full-time operating business, or even maybe just to learn about business and start your own later. Who knows where it'll
Come
take
on.
you, but it's the first step. And it's way easier to start a franchise than it is to start from scratch. Trust me.
Yo, this is the Streetwise podcast, where we help you level up your game, level up your leadership, and level up your life. I'm your host, Matthew McReynolds. I'm a multi-brand franchisee, and I'm a franchise consultant, which means I help people find, launch, and build their ideal franchise business. My main goal is to help you get off of zero and become the person that your dreams need you to be. Buckle up, get your popcorn ready, let's go. Streetwise Nation, we got Carmelo Marsala with SprayNet. My man, we just saw each other in person at the Franchise Conference in Memphis. My voice still has not recovered, but Carmelo, what's good, man? How are you doing? It's good to see you again. Thank you for coming on.
Likewise. I feel like we just saw each other. It's like a little bit 3 days.
Yeah, it's only been 3 days. You told me offline a little bit about the trek back, but I'm glad to see you made it back to Canada, man.
Of course, when the only time I'm traveling, we have the biggest outage in history and not able to get home, right?
Yeah, that'll be one down for the history books. But tell me, let's start out like this, because I mean, you and I, I've known you for a little bit now. We got some decent rapport, but the audience probably doesn't. They probably know more about the brand than they do you, if they do know about the brand. So give me like a really quick rundown of who you are, what your role is, like what your title is on LinkedIn, and how that affects like your day-to-day life. Like let's start there.
Cool. Well, I guess the title, if you will, is founder and CEO. So I founded this company going in on 13, almost 14 years now. So it's been a while.
Ooh,
Yeah,
man.
long time. Before that, actually, I was a franchisee. I was a student painting franchisee. So I was brushing and rolling houses. So kind of more in the conventional painting space. SprayNet is still in the painting space, just in an unconventional way, I guess. I know everybody says that. We actually manufacture our own products, and we have 3 patents on the process in which we apply them. What makes it different is we're able to give a 15-year no-peel warranty. It looks brand new. It doesn't look repainted. And we typically do surfaces that you wouldn't think that you can paint. So we stain brick, vinyl windows, front doors, garage doors. We actually now refinish kitchen cabinets, and most recently we've actually developed a product for our roof for a roof. So I mean, I can dive into any of those avenues as you want, but that's kind of high level who we are and what we do.
We will, trust me. But like as the founder, you've built out this business, and we talk about on this show the difference between launching a business and then launching a franchise piece of that business. You have to create one, if not maybe even 2 or more different businesses within in order to franchise a concept. So like you've done that. Like you've been SprayNet for over a decade, and now you've been franchising. Like what is your day-to-day now? Like what do you do on a day-to-day basis, man?
I do podcasts.
There we go.
Part of it
There we
is
go.
actually, you know what? I like that you mentioned that they're 2 different businesses. I want to get some context around that. So the story I always tell potential franchisees how we started. People are like, how did this start? So 2011 started the business. We grew really, really quick because we were offering something that was different in the space. So
Yeah, facts.
So we weren't just painting. It was a 15-year warranty. It was cost effective. So we can talk a bit more about that. But we grew from like basically 0 to 3+ million in sales in less than 3 years. And that was like really crazy because we were only doing exteriors. So we were doing that 3 million in sales in 5 months. Because up here in the Great White North, you could literally only paint outside from like May to maybe mid-October.
Sure.
So that was our season. So we almost 60 employees at that point, and it was just wild because I barely had any systems. I was basically the call center, the marketing team, the team lead, the founder, the CEOs. So the story I like to tell is I was on a ladder. One guy hadn't showed up, so I was spraying the siding. Phone to my ear, customer calling me. The phone fell. I threw my spray gun down. I said, you know what? Enough is enough. This is too much. This is not sustainable. So back then we had off seasons, right? Because in the winter we didn't work. So I picked up a book called The E-Myth Revisited, and it talked about franchising. And I said, I used to be a franchisee. Why don't I try franchising this business? And that's what we did. And we weren't good at it at the beginning because I didn't realize all the stuff that I knew. It was common sense to me, but not to franchisees. And it took us
Sure.
a few years to really start, creating processes that were scalable, et cetera. And literally today, segue into what I do today, it's always continuously optimizing our products and our processes to allow our franchisees to scale better, quicker, and easier. So what that means, because that sounds fluffy, but what that means is software development. So we built our own software from scratch. So software allows our franchisees to know where their employees are, automate their bonuses, price jobs out, schedule jobs, all these things that I didn't have that forced me to be on the ladder and not be able to scale my business. So software is a big one. The big one for us specifically, though, and where I probably spend a good portion of my time is on the chemistry part. So yeah, so like a lot of the stuff that we want to make it easy to apply, which makes it scalable. That's our biggest challenge is we can make the best products ever, but if they're not simple to apply for field techs, it's not going to scale properly. So that's where I spend a lot of my time is how do we make these products better and easier to apply more consistently?
That's really cool, man. That I'm taking notes. I always take notes because I keep my mindset on point. But I'm curious, man, because I talk to a lot of people that are, maybe they're brand new in entrepreneurship, but they hear about franchising and they think about franchising their business. And so they reach out to me because I'm the closest one in their circle that is in the franchising space, even though that's not necessarily what I do, but I do make connections and can get people plugged in the right way. And so I see like a journey like yours and I hear what they go through on the day to day. And it seems to me that there has to be a very significant shift in the process in order to be able to take yourself out and implement processes in and do it in a way that other people can pick up on the business. Like maybe the business started and it was like a small family structure and maybe the one guy was the technician like in the E-Myth and he just couldn't get out of it. What was the significant shift for you that really like turned the corner and gave you confidence that, okay, we have a really good system right now from a franchising perspective?
Well, a few pieces. The aha moment for me was the E-Myth Revisit when I threw down my spray gun. I'm like, this is no longer sustainable. So for me, it was like, how do we scale a service business? The other thing is we just couldn't keep up with the demand. So I figured like, we're definitely on to something here. People want this once they hear about it. But really like, what really solidified it for me was that winter after I read the E-Myth Revisited, we got 2 new franchisees. So basically 1 2 hours east of here, 1 2 hours west of here.
Okay.
And look, to be honest, our training was like back then was me in a room with them is like, got any questions? Because like we didn't have any training back then, right? So they were actually, surprisingly successful in their first year. Like really, they did really well, both of them. So I said, wow, with little to minimal training, I basically just answered their questions. These guys are successful. Let's scale this up. And what we did was we actually sold out the country 2 years later. The reason we were able to do that is we were featured on a show called Dragon's Den, which is the equivalent of Shark Tank here in Canada.
Okay.
On the show. Yeah.
I love that.
And, like it just blew up. Like we got so many franchise requests. Microsoft thought we were getting hacked and shut off all of our servers. So people would go on our Facebook page to ask to request for a franchise. So we got over 1,500 franchise requests in less than 24 hours. And considering the population of Canada, that's a huge amount. So we sold out the entire country. And that's when we realized, oh man, we don't know how to be a real franchisor. So we started selling off our corporate territories as franchises and decided to focus 100% on franchising. And that's when we started putting together processes, changing our products to make them more easy to apply, scalable, our software development. We really shifted from being an operator to a franchisor. And it's a really important shift. And most people do that too late because, you're making money from your operations and franchising costs money, but you really need to figure out how to do that sooner rather than later because it's such an important shift to make.
Man, yeah, you said it. I feel like when you do make that transition, you have to maintain the operations of the business, but you also have to be able to build in a pillar that can support franchisees. But then you also have like that sales piece of it too, of selling franchises and making sure that you get people that are the right people in your system. Because what it sounds like with your story, like, I mean, not to discredit you guys in any way, but those first 2 that you got, I mean, they had to be the right avatar in order to be able to pick it up and go. So did you like use learnings from them in order to be able to like turn down or approve people in the future? Like, what was your mindset there?
We did actually. It's funny. 10 years later, they're still around. They're killing it. Like
Love that.
so they're
Love
our
that.
first ever franchisees. I'm actually pretty grateful they're still around. They're
Yeah.
still like they're one of them got franchisee of the year last year. One of them actually, so he's an older gentleman now. He just literally a few months ago sold it to his team lead. So that's amazing, right? Just like it's almost like generational transfer here, if you will. That's gratifying for us. But yeah, we definitely use them as an avatar. The thing is, as we started scaling, we thought like, okay, maybe this type of individual will be good, or this type of, and you try, you fail, you reiterate, optimize, try,
Yeah.
fail, and it's tough because, look, I'll be the first one to say it. I've flat out said to our team, this person I don't think will be a good fit for us, and the team's like, I don't know, let's give him a shot. And this guy was our franchisee of the year one year, and I couldn't believe it. And I literally said, this guy is going to be a beast, and that person didn't last. So it's like, it's
Sure.
tough because you try, but like, man, you only really start to realize once people get in it and they get punched in the face a few times, how they're going to react to that. And it's really, really hard to know that before. It's really, really tough.
Facts.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. So you guys, so when I saw you in Memphis, that was my second franchise conference, and so something that I'm experiencing for the first time, and maybe you can tell me if this is normal or not. But I talk a little bit about the FSOs on the show, the Franchise Sales Organization, and when I met you at the first conference, you guys were a part of Franchise Fastlane to help assist in your franchise development, but now you've taken that in-house. And so explain to me the thought process of a growing franchise concept, a franchisor that then they first decide to outsource franchise development and then get to a point in the system where they can bring it in-house.
Yeah.
Explain to me like what's going on in your mind as you navigate that journey.
Well, so I guess like to give a bit of context for those who are not familiar with how the franchise space works, right? There's consultants such as yourself,
Right?
and different groups of consultants. Now, if you're a new brand, especially us, we're in a bit of an interesting place because we're not an emerging brand because we were relatively established in our country, but we were, I
Sure.
guess, new to Canada. So our systems were well established, but we were still an emerging brand in the US, right? So
Got it.
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like that's not typically how it works. Typically, is you're just emerging and you don't have your system in place, and you want an FSO to help you kind of with the whole picture. Now, for us, we want an FSO to help us kind of just launch us with the consultant networks, just kind of like because they've got the relationships and all of that stuff. And then once we got a pretty good handle on like, okay, we know which consultants are able to bring us the right candidates and whatnot. The challenge we started having with an FSO, and it's not with all franchises, particularly with ours, is because we're actually, everybody says they're different, but we've got 3 patents, we've got 13 different formulas. It's actually a different type of business that you really need to be able to explain the intricacies relatively well in order for a franchise candidate to really understand it. And it's
Sure.
difficult for an FSO to do that because they're not in here, they're not internally. So the reason why we did that is because one of our most senior employees who's been here almost 12 years, he's like, hey man, I've been on the FBC side, so franchise business coaching side, and I know what kind of franchises we need to bring in. I know how to screen them. I know what to say to them. I know how to get them excited, but I also know how to set expectations. And I say, you know what? Like, I think we're at the stage where we need to be a bit more selective in who we bring in, and we need to be able to explain and set expectations better. So that's why we made that decision. Look, FSOs can be really, really great. It's just for us specifically. We were at the point where we had enough franchisees where it made sense now for us to bring it in-house.
Love it. And so I'm assuming we're talking about are we talking about Super G?
Super G, you remember him?
Let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right. Oh, that's really cool, man. That's really cool. And yeah, you guys, and I can say as a franchisee of a separate paint concept, you guys are truly unique. You really are. And that actually is a pretty decent transition into the next piece. It was the next on my list, but I'll take it back to something that you already said. You talk about the chemistry. So you as a franchisee and as somebody who's actually on the ladder painting and doing the work, to then being able to create your own paint that's completely separate from what's currently out there. And then you've now leveraged that with partnerships with, I know you guys are with Lowe's, and then now you're doing the roofing stuff as well. What the heck? Like, how does that two come together? Did you have like a chemistry background? What did you have to learn in order to put yourself in that position?
Well, like I guess ever since I was young, it was always like things that have been done a certain way that like nobody's ever changed. I'm like, but why are we doing this way? So for example, like when I was spraying back in the day, like we would get it was almost impossible to spray during certain conditions. Like we had a very tight window for exterior painting because if humidity was too high, it was too low, if there was wind, if there was sun, if there was shade, there was just so many factors you would get different reactions in the coatings. And then even when they would dry, you wouldn't get those final film properties that you really wanted. So when I was spraying, I was like, man, like, when they're spraying in a factory, how come we getting these brand new windows, brand new doors? They don't ever peel. They're super hard. Why can't we apply those on site? So I took those products and I tried to apply them on site. And I realized there's one thing to have the final film properties, but there's the other thing to apply them on site, which requires what's called rheology and chemistry. And I'll get back to how I figured this all out. But basically, you can't apply those products on site because they'll dry too quick, they'll crack, and they won't last very long. So I said, well, what if we can apply those? We could take that chemistry and be able to apply it on site. That was our first patent. That's how we're able to slow down or speed up the dry time, which gives us that consistent factory finish and durability every time. Now, how did I figure all this out? Well, I had that idea. I took a few formulation courses, and I asked the teacher if this was possible. And almost every single teacher said, well, if it was possible, someone would have done it already. I said, well, maybe they just didn't think about it because how many people who are painting think about the chemistry? Generally, those two are disconnected, right? So I guess I was in the unique position to be able to spray and also think of the chemistry at the same time. So I finally found a chemist who was like, you know what? Let's try this. And we tweaked and we tweaked and we tweaked. And we finally did it for front doors and garage doors. And then we kind of used that same logic for everything else. You know, when we talk about the roofs, I don't know if you have any questions on that, but the roofs is kind of a similar story. So I can get into that if you like.
No, let's go into it, man, because you guys are, from what I understand, you can spray a coating on a roof that it helps the longevity and the health of the roof and the structure itself. And you can do it in a way that is not harmful and doesn't have the adverse effects. So like, that's just my limited understanding of the concept. So yeah, I'd love to figure out like,
well, not bad.
Not bad.
You got the gist of it, but yeah,
Not bad.
it's funny
Okay.
because there was so many unintended benefits, and I say this because it's true of the roof coating. So at first, the reason why we developed the roof coating is actually I was doing a quote with a franchisee, and it was this huge job. We're gonna do the brick, we're gonna do the windows, we're gonna do the siding, we're gonna do everything, and it was like almost a $20,000 job. And finally, we didn't end up signing the job because the roof was green, and they're like, you know what? I got a quote to change my roof to black so it would match, and it was like 30K. And I'm like, man, I can't believe we're losing this job just because of the color of the roof. So I said, what if we could change the color of the roof? So I started looking online and seeing, what there is out there. And there are paints for roofs, but I'm like, I don't want to paint a roof because it's going to look painted. It's not going to look good. So I'm like, then I started researching, similar to the way that we did for everything else, how they manufacture roofs. And what I realized is, those granules that you've got on those asphalt shingled roofs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, you've got those in Dallas there. Those are stamped and heated into the asphalt in the shingle. What happens is over time, because they're not glued on, they come off, right? You get them all in your gutter, and that's what exposes the asphalt to the UV, and that's what causes it to crack and curl, and that's when you have to start changing your roof. So I said, well, what if we can take those granules, because that'll give us the color of the roof, and glue them onto the roof? Now, the idea was simple. In practice, it was very difficult. It took us almost 5 years to not only be able to create the chemistry, but then once we created the chemistry a few years later, we actually had to custom manufacture a pump to be able to spray that onto a roof. So now what we're able to do is we've actually developed a resin, call it a glue if you want to simplify it, that envelops these granules that you get on a brand new roof and glue them to the existing asphalt shingle. And it dries clear, so what you see is the actual granules, similarly to if you would have a brand new roof. Now, the beauty of that is you can change the color, but what's really, really cool is it increases impact resistance because it's like you're putting a new layer. It increases wind resistance because you're literally gluing everything together. And it also allows the roof to basically last a lot longer. So you're changing the color and prolonging its life for a fraction of the cost, time, and mess. So it's a crazy no-brainer. So it's going to be huge. Like, in my opinion, it's going to be bigger than all of our other services.
So I've heard about you guys working on this. Is this something that's currently rolled out to the franchisees now, or is it still at the final stages?
So it is actually. So we started rolling it out to 6 franchisees last year. We've got 6 more on board this year. I'm actually flying out to Wisconsin in a few weeks. The franchisee just launched it and signed $60,000 worth of roofs in his first week.
Wow.
So we're going there to do his training. And we're actually in talks with insurance companies who want to use us as the official risk mitigation coating for roofs, which is huge.
That's cool. Okay, so just for record, let's timestamp it real quick. It's summer, July 2024. So just that's really cool, man, to see you guys building this process out. So one of the other things I wanted to touch on too is like the Lowe's partnership. As a franchisee coming in, big national partnerships can definitely add in the launch aspect of starting your business. Like that's arguably one of the hardest parts about the
Yep.
starting a new business is starting a new
Yeah.
business. So the national partnerships, I want to hear about how you guys procured those, but also like what actual tangible benefits does it play out for your franchisees when they get going?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to do partnerships with like, Lowe's or Home Depot, etc. We had actually done a partnership with a big chain in Canada and we learned a ton of what not to
Okay.
do and what to do.
Yeah.
So we so the what not to do we didn't do with Lowe's this time, and actually we've got a great partnership with Lowe's. It's actually really, really amazing. When you talk about launching a business, how cool is it if you can set up on a weekend a table and just talk to people? So one of the things that we didn't do right in previous partnership was be in the right section. So now we're in the kitchen section. So let's say you're going in and you're looking to either reface or replace your kitchen cabinets. Well, boom, SprayNet's in your face is the third option, which is a fraction of the cost, time, and mess, right? So it's like it's almost a no-brainer. So not only can you set up there, our franchisees go in and they actually educate all of the consultants within the stores to be able to sell on their behalf. Just to give an example, our Phoenix franchisees 2 weeks ago got 15 leads from just one store, one Lowe's store, because they go in and they continuously educate those consultants in the stores on how to sell the SprayNet service. It's honestly, it's an amazing way to launch your business because there's no upfront cost other than your time, and you get leads from Lowe's, which is like huge credibility. It's just a great way, and we're actually now talking of getting our other services into Lowe's too. So we started with the kitchens first.
Yo, thanks for listening this far. It's at this point in the episode that I want to talk about Streetwise franchising, teaching, training, building. Streetwise franchising. As a franchise consultant, it's my job, it's my absolute pleasure, and it's my mission to help aspiring entrepreneurs find, launch, and build their ideal business. I've been a franchise owner for almost a decade. I know what it means to struggle. I know what it means to build a team. If you're ready to get off of zero, if you're ready to build something for yourself, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's get the conversation started. Don't wait until tomorrow to build your future. It starts today. Streetwise Franchising. Stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Let's get back to the episode. That's really cool, man. And that kind of plays out into, because I wanted to talk to you about the business model itself, right? Like when you get into franchising from a franchise owner perspective, at least I like to coach people. It's not necessarily about the widget, but about how you fit into the widget and then what the widget can do to build up your dreams for your life financially and just how you walk through your day to day and what you want to do and all of that. And so maybe explain to me the widget itself, the business model in that sense, and what type of people are you looking for? Like if somebody becomes a franchisee, what are the things that they're actually having to do themselves?
So it's funny. A mentor of mine once said, every franchisor is looking for A players because an A player you can throw them anywhere and they'll be successful.
Come on, man.
Right. So, but when you get the B players, or I don't want to call them B players because it sounds condescending, but let's say like the average person who's not going to be a high performer. When you can get those people to do well in your business, that's when you become a franchisor. I said that's a really smart way of thinking about it because
I like that.
what you said at the beginning, those two guys were the right fit. Yeah, they were. We were not a good franchisor, right? At that point. But had we had those people today, they would still do well. But today, we're able to take someone who has no business experience, because both those did, and turn them into a business person and help them be successful. So that's what I guess you call the widget is. I think all of the best franchisors will help you in that. I guess the differentiating factor is for you as a franchisee, what do you see yourself doing, and will you enjoy that? I think particularly for us, what I enjoy, what our franchisees enjoy, is the fact that we're very different. So there's no direct competition, and higher barrier to entry, and all of that fun stuff. But when I really peeled back the onion and asked them, okay, besides all of that stuff on the surface that we all know that we're different, etc., what do you really enjoy about this? And it's funny because I don't know if you'll guess this, but they all said the customer reaction. So the customer loves what we do, and at the end of the day, they're almost like, wow. Like, I didn't think this was possible. I can't believe you guys were able to do this in like a day or two at this cost. This is like, so they're so happy about it. I've had customers cry and like I've literally teared up because it's just like,
Yeah,
I'm
I
just so,
bet.
so happy about it. So like, when you think about other services, people are not necessarily happy for you to show up and do your, I don't know, I'm not gonna mention anything, but like you're not always happy about the money you need to spend. People are generally happy about this. So like it's really cool to make that sort of impact in people's lives and on the community. So I think that's the important piece because we give great support, and I'm sure a lot of other franchisors do too. But really, do you see yourself doing this service and doing it well? I guess would be my advice.
Sure. How have you seen the home service space, the property service space change throughout pre-COVID, during COVID, and now post-COVID? I mean, you guys have been around for a minute. I know from first experience, my mosquito business shot up during COVID, but then afterwards there was, people were not sure what was going to happen with the economy, but at the same
Right.
time, I built up a loyal customer base that our business sustained, right? So that
Right.
was my experience. But you have the benefit of seeing multinational growth in your one business, but with multiple franchisees in different parts of the world. Uh, what do you got
So
for me there?
that's a good question. So what I would say is it's not so much about geography as it is how mature your business is. Like you nailed it on the head. You had a loyal customer base, so your business do well. Like we saw our franchisees that are we call our senior franchisees year 5+, even year 3+. These guys never actually produce what they sell. They always sell way more than they can produce, and it's our constant struggle as a franchisor is guys, you need to add more teams. You need to, you need to up the production because the demand is there. But it's a different story from year 1 to year 2. Year 0. I like to call it year 0 when you're starting. To year 2 is you're starting to get the name out there. You're getting your boots on the ground. You're doing jobs. You're getting referrals. Getting Google reviews. To launch during COVID, it was crazy because everybody's just looking for stuff. To launch after COVID, it's still been good for us surprisingly because we don't offer something that's a commodity. It's still different, but it just hasn't been as overwhelming as it was during COVID, right? But I speak to a lot of people in the home service sector, and they're like, "Oh, you guys must be down this year." I'm like, "No, actually, we're not. We're up like quite a bit, significantly so." And they're like, "You don't have to lie to me. This is in confidence." I'm like, "No, I'm not lying. I almost feel bad that like I'm saying this now because it seems like you guys are behind. It's just because like we're offering something that people will do during good or bad times because it's a want that's not expensive and has a high impact on your home, right? So we're lucky actually to that wasn't by design, but the unintended benefit here again is we're lucky that we have that kind of service.
That's really cool, man. It's cool to hear. You seem like a pretty young dude. I mean, I feel like we're around the same age. One of us got to be older than the other. Going back to like 18-year-old self, like, did you foresee that? Was this the time that you were painting houses? Did you foresee this in your future? What development have you had to go through in order to be where you are today?
So my 18-year-old self, I was actually a franchisee of student painting, College Pro
Okay,
student
that
painting.
was around that time.
Yeah, and then I did that for actually I started at 19. So I did that for about 3 years, and I actually graduated from finance. So I thought I was going to be a stockbroker. I actually sold all my equipment. I thought I was going to be a stockbroker. But the year before I had stopped doing College Pro, I actually had sent out SprayNet tester flyers just because I wanted to spray coatings instead of brush and rolling them. And somebody called me about 3 weeks before I was actually going to be a stockbroker, and they said, "Hey, I got this SprayNet flyer last fall. Would you be open to give me a quote?" And I said, "Well, you know what? I'm no longer doing this." And I got a second call, and I'm like, "I'm no longer doing this." And I got a third call and a fourth call, and I'm like, "You know what?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll come give you a quote." So I called back all those other people. I'm like, "You know what? Like, sorry, I'm actually going to keep doing this." I signed all 4 of those jobs, bought back the equipment, and the story I like to tell is I went to print out contracts, and it was almost May, and that would be typically your busy season. And the printer said, "You must be so busy with all kinds of work right now." But I had literally just restarted. So I'm like, yeah, I'm real busy. Print me out those contracts. I got to go sign some jobs. And that's really how it started. And at first, we were just spraying the coat. That was the whole spray net. And then we started evolving into like, hey, just spraying them alone is not what's going to give us what we want. That's the story that I told before about how we started making our own coatings.
Okay, no, I
So it's an
got you, man.
evolution. It's an evolution.
Yeah.
But I did know as of that time I threw down my spray gun. I did know that something needs changed. I did know that I wanted to franchise. And I did know that I wanted to do that in Canada and the US. So at that point, it was about like, all right, how do we work backwards towards that goal?
What mentors and resources did you tap into along the journey to help facilitate that level of growth?
So the IFA is a tremendous resource. So the International Franchise Association. I was fortunate enough to have been on stage in front of all 4,000 members because I won.
Wow.
Yeah, I won what's called the Next Gen in Franchising. So we were named the #1 emerging brand in the world. So the audience got to vote on the top 3 pitches. So it was like 700 participants from around the world. 20 got to pitch at IFA, and 3 got to pitch in front of everybody, and the audience voted. We won #1. So from
Whoa.
that, yeah, it was really, really cool. 2016, and then we won the All-Star in 2020. We actually won both. But what was cool about that is because the audience is voting, you've got all the top franchise executives in the world knowing your brand now. And so many reached out to me and said, hey, how can I help? Can I invest? Can I be part of this? So literally that was like a huge catalyst for us. I got to meet franchise titans who got like 2, 3, 4,000 franchisees on my advisory board, helping me. I can call them. It was really, really good. It was a great resource for sure.
That's cool, man. I have been taught, it's crazy. Like it's been a natural trend where people have been talking up the IFA. How would you advise or coach somebody up who's maybe a franchisee? Maybe they are launching as an emerging franchise concept or broker and consultant. Like I haven't been myself. I've not been too involved in the IFA yet, but I keep hearing about it. Like coach me out. Like what are good ways to get plugged in and to learn and to network in that space?
I would say you have. So this year it's in Vegas, the annual conference. I think it's in February. I haven't checked the dates yet, but like if you're in the franchise space, you need to be there. Like anybody, like the who's who franchise. There's 4,000 people that go to that conference, and you're talking about like people from all over the world. Obviously, a huge amount from the U.S., but it's just the top people in the franchise community are there speaking on panels, keynoting, like networking. If you want to meet people and you want to learn about franchising, it is probably the best investment you can make. And this year's in Vegas, so that's kind of cool too.
That is pretty cool. Okay. No, I appreciate that. Tell
I'll
me
see you
about
there,
the,
right, Matt?
yeah, come on, man. Let's go. Let's go. I'm serious. I've been wanting to connect in that capacity. I mean, that's kind of what this platform is for, is to kind of get myself. It's not just about what you know, it's about who you know, but also who knows you, right?
Right.
Like, you got to
Yeah.
get out there. So, okay. I'm curious a couple more things about the business itself. I'm curious about how you guys have built up the team. We talked about our guy Super G, and you can kind of
G.
explain his role and the internal development piece. But as you build out, like we talked about the need for it, but also I'm curious, like what it actually looks like on your side of the business now. Like who is in your circle as you're building up the organization?
So Super G, I mean, I'll say his real name. It's
Yeah,
Gab. Gab.
yeah,
This is actually a cool story. So when I was just spraying on regular coatings, he was the one selling them to me. And he was so good at that paint store that one day I said, you know what? We need to work together. You got to stop selling me paint. We need to work together. And he was actually my first ever salesperson. So he sold jobs just, to customers. Then he became a director of our corporate territory. So he managed our corporate crews. Then he became a franchisee. So he bought out that territory he was running. Then he came back because he wanted to just coach franchisees again. And he became a franchise business coach. And now he's our franchise sales director. So he knows everything about SprayNet. So it just made so much sense for him to be able to actually help people exploring the franchise process with SprayNet to just be able to answer anything they possibly might have. So Gab is a vital key person on our team. When I look at I guess my immediate team is our leadership teams. I've got Bo, who you met actually in Memphis.
yeah.
Yeah. So he's actually our head of U.S. operations. So he's basically, I guess, if you will, our president of our U.S. Affiliate. So he takes care of everything: FranDev operations, franchisee profitability, everything in the U.S. He's from Phoenix. He's a 15-year franchise veteran. He was actually brand president of another home service brand before. So he takes care of everything U.S. Then I've got Pat. So Pat was actually the VP at College Pro when I was a franchisee there. So he taught me how to run a franchise business. So he takes care of all of our operations side, Canadian operations, distribution, etc. And then, of course, our chemist, our IT, our head of IT, and head of marketing. So that's, I guess, my immediate leadership team that I deal with on I guess, a weekly or day-to-day basis. But we've got almost 40 people on our support team, from call center, marketing, distribution, manufacturing. We've got a really robust team now, and I'm proud. I'm really proud of the team we've been able to put together because they're very experienced. Man, people stay here quite a bit. Like I think our average tenure is almost 7 years.
Hey, there
And
we go.
and for young people, that's pretty long.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Well, I
Yeah.
gotta tell you, man, I really respect what you guys are building. As I've been a franchisee for almost a decade. I'm in multiple concepts, and now that I'm on the consultant broker side, I get to see behind the curtain in a different way. And I got to tell you, man, and to you, the listener, the person that's driving, whatever you're doing right now, when you have a franchise concept where they have specific experience in the widget on all different sides of it, that that's the concept that they're selling you. They have intimate experience in that concept. It goes such a long way. And don't sleep on it when you're looking at and you're investigating franchise opportunities in your area. That's a big deal, man. And no, kudos to you guys at SprayNet for building that
So
way.
I was actually at a franchise conference, and the keynote speaker asked, it was all franchisors, and he said, "How many of you franchisors have been franchisees before?" So I quickly shot up my hand, and I thought I was going to be in a room full of hands up. And I looked around, and I slowly kind of put it down because I was like, "Wow, I'm one of the only ones." And it was so shocking to me because on our team we actually have 7 people that have been franchisees before to support our franchisees. It's a very difficult thing to be able to empathize and know how it is on, I guess, quote unquote, the other side if you've never
Yeah.
been there, right? Because a franchisor is making decisions for the brand that are long term, but franchisees are thinking short term and I need to survive and be profitable, right? So you got to be able to balance that on both sides. And because most of our leadership team has been franchisees before, we're obviously able to see both sides, right? I think it's so important.
Yeah, just to feed off of that, the franchise business coach role has always been so interesting to me. And I didn't have this question prepared myself. So there's no way you could have known I was going to ask you this, but what do you think is the most important trait for a franchise business coach in a system to have? Because I see people that are technicians, I see guys that are bean counters, I see guys that are corporate kind of pushers of the corporate agenda. Like, where does the ideal franchise business coach actually reside? Is that even a fair question?
It is. It's multifaceted, but if I had to pick
Okay.
one word, I would say empathy.
Ooh,
Because
there we go.
the technical knowledge, we've got a chat bot where, we basically use Chat GPT algorithm and it searches all of our SprayNet stuff. So, I mean, the technical stuff, they can literally just ask chatbot, get the answers. The coach needs to be empathetic to where the franchisee is in their journey. Because when you're in your first 6 months, it's overwhelming. People are fragile. So
Yeah.
we joke about it, but you're a therapist at that point. You're just trying to get people to not quit. And then once they're open enough, once they pass that stage, then you can start coaching them on like, okay, here's what you need to do the next phase in your business. But that part is somewhat easy because it's similar across most home service brands. Like, but it's really that empathy part that we're here for you, we understand, but here's what you got to do to keep moving forward, right? So I think that's really really important in a franchise business coach.
I love that, man. What a beautiful answer. And to the listener, anytime you hear me laugh, I laugh so I don't cry because I feel that so intimately in my own story. And that's cool. And I agree 100%. I think having empathy in any leadership role, it gets the best level of results. As we get wrap this thing up, not wrapping it up right now, but as I push into the fourth quarter of the conversation, I'd be curious to hear how you define like this chapter of your personal life. Like, as you've grown as an entrepreneur, as a leader, how do you define this specific chapter for you?
That's a good question, actually. So I want to touch on the whole empathy piece before to give some context. So,
Yeah, come on.
no matter what you do, no matter what you do, you're always going to go, up and down the transition curve. So I don't know if you ever heard of the transition curve where you start something and it's on uninformed optimism and you're like, this is going to be great. It's going to be so easy. And then you start and it's informed pessimism. And you're like, whoa, this is way harder than I thought. And then
Yeah.
you've got that crisis of meaning where you're like, holy crap, should I quit or do I continue? And then you've got informed optimism after you get past that. And it's like, all right, here's what I need to do to keep moving forward. And I've been at all of those stages, at every stage of the business. And I remember when I was a franchisee, I vividly remember this phone call. My business coach, I called him. I'm like, hey, I'm done. He's like, what do you mean you're done? I'm like, I've had enough of this. I can't take it anymore. I'm just done. And I remember he coached me through that and brought me back to, informed optimism. And here's what we're going to do. And I owe it to him because I may have been done in entrepreneurship forever, right? And I always think back to that conversation of like, all right, this
Wow.
sucks, but how do we get past this? Because quitting is no longer an option, right? So I guess today I'm way more aware of that. So things don't phase me quite as much. Entrepreneurs were very reactive, very impulsive. So I'm definitely, I definitely do that. But like I'm able to quickly take a step back. And especially now that we've got a nice leadership team, we've got support, like I feel like we can get through anything at this point. And there's going to be tough times no matter what stage you're at. But we're at a point where we've gone past the foundational piece of becoming a franchisor. And we've got that, we've got the nice foundation. Now we can build on it. So that's a bit funner for me because we've got solid, good, competent people that can help us build. And that includes our franchisees. So I think it's starting to get a bit more fun. It never gets easier. It gets different.
There we go.
But
Come on.
yeah. I was telling a buddy of mine, like, I see all these memes about weekends. And like, honestly, up until a few years ago, I didn't even know what a weekend was. Like it was just every day was the same for me. Right. So yeah, it's just, you're able to handle hard better. I think that's where I'm at.
Again, that's beautiful, man, because I feel that curve, and it's cyclical, because as soon as you level up, you almost start back over, because you finally reach the pinnacle of like, oh, until I get to that point, everything will be good. And then you get to that point, and what was the first step? Uninformed optimism. You get to that peak, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Now I got to deal with, now I got to go up there. Oh, man. That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. So, okay, looking forward and defining your legacy, and in what you've built so far, what is the next step in where you want to go, if that's whether for SprayNet or you personally, however you want to interpret it?
Well, look, our mission. So the story I didn't tell, and I'll give quick context again. I like to do so. In finance, a teacher wrote on the board, "Wealth is transferred from one person to another." And I said, well, that kind of sucks. We're just moving money around. And I said, I never just want to have a winner and a loser. I want to be able to create scenarios where we create value for both parties, where it's a win-win, right? So that's actually our mission. It's right on the wall there. I'm reading it right here. Is to offer renovation solutions that maximize value for our customers, and as a result, our franchise partners and team. For me, I believe we've created a product that adds a tremendous amount of value for people's properties. But now I want to take that and add value for aspiring entrepreneurs to create wealth from that. And then as a result, our team to have career opportunities and paths. So like for me right now, it's about creating value and wealth for everybody at SprayNet. Like, so it's one thing to create wealth for yourself as an entrepreneur. It's way more gratifying to create wealth for others, because as a result, you do for yourself. So I don't want it to be a win-lose. I want it to be a win-win for everyone. And it's tough at times, but that's what always keeps me going. And that's really my North Star.
That's awesome, man. This is my last official question for you. I'll let you get back to your day, man. This has been great connecting with you, man. Yeah, this has been a pleasure. I love engaging on this level, and you've added so much value to me and to the listener. Just knowing you, man, it's been a pleasure. I like to think about this platform as an opportunity to help people get off of zero and take the step, whether that's investing in a business, taking the new role, the promotion, putting themselves out there. So that's what this is about. How do you coach somebody up? This is your opportunity to coach somebody off of zero to take that first step in living out the life that they feel like they're called to be living.
So it's funny. I actually read something about that the other day, because so everybody's always waiting for the right time, right? Yeah. There's no right time. There's a million right ways to do something, and there's only one wrong way to do it, and it's to do nothing. So I really, really like that. And actually, I'm grabbing that off Alex Hermosi. I'm sure you know who he is.
Let's go. Yeah.
And the thing is, I have friends and people that always talk about, like, you're so lucky you started your own business. I wish I could start. I'm like, well, you can. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to start from scratch. Like, oh, you had an idea. I don't have an idea. I'm like, you don't need an idea. You can get a franchise, right? Like, if you really want to start your own business and you're itching for it, like I was when I was young, I got a franchise. That's how I started. I didn't start from scratch. I started in a franchise, right? So like a franchise is a great stepping stone to either A, become your full-time operating business, or even maybe just to learn about business and start your own later. Who knows where it'll take you? But it's the first step. And it's way easier to start a franchise than it is to start from scratch. Trust me. Yeah.
Facts. It's easier to get funding. You have a blueprint to just take your steps on, and what you said is so beautiful. It's a platform to build off of, and in franchising, it's not about the widget. It's about what the widget can do to help you get off of zero and take the next step forward. So obviously, I'm a big advocate for franchise opportunities. I think you can launch a business. You can have the end in mind, and I think you should always launch with how I'm going to sell it on the back end. And you can do
Yep.
that, and who knows what your entrepreneurial journey can look like, just if you're not afraid to get off of the starting
And I,
line.
and I was telling my wife, I'm like, we were at a regional meet, and I was like, it's so beautiful because where else can you be in a room with like 50, 100, 150 other people who are doing the exact same thing as you, but not your competition? So they
They
can
want to
share
help
best
you.
practice. Yeah.
They
How
need to
crazy.
help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so unique, so wild, and so beautiful. And honestly, one of my favorite things about franchise ownerships is the community of franchisees, other
Right.
franchise owners that are in your network that they need. It's the true epitome of being go-givers. And the more they can give to the system, the better that they can get back. That's
Right.
beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Well, Carmelo, I appreciate you for hopping on, man. This has been a pleasure. To the listener, I mean, if you need something painted in your local community, put SprayNet on the list. Get a quote, like put them in the ringer, no matter what. And if you're interested in the franchise opportunity, there might be a location available in your market. Reach out to me, and I can connect you to this team if that's the way that you want to go. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.
Love it.
All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hey, if this episode added any value to your life at all, please like it, share it, give me a 5-star review. It's the only way that this show is going to gain traction and help more people achieve their dreams. If you're ready to start your franchise journey, visit streetwisefranchising.com. Let's set up a time to talk. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, stay streetwise. Peace.